The snow was falling hard that December evening when I heard a voice that would change my life forever. I was leaving my office building, exhausted from another 16-hour day of closing deals and counting profits, when I heard it. A child's voice, pure and crystalline, cutting through the noise of the city like a bell, singing about hope, about peace, about joy. All the things I'd stopped believing in years ago. My name is Thomas Blackwell. I'm worth $3 billion. And that night, a homeless boy reminded me what wealth really means. I should have kept walking. That's what I always did. Manhattan at Christmas is full of street performers, charity collectors, people wanting something from you. I'd trained myself to see through them, around them, past them. But this voice stopped me cold. I turned and saw him. A boy, maybe 10 years old, standing outside a closed storefront. His coat was too thin for the weather, his shoes had holes in them, and his fingers were red from the cold. But his eyes were closed, and he was singing like he was standing in Carnegie Hall. I'm not a sentimental man. I built my empire by making hard decisions, by putting profit over sentiment, by never letting emotions cloud my judgment. My ex-wife used to say I had ice water in my veins. My daughter hadn't spoken to me in 3 years. My son only called when he needed money, but something about this boy's voice cracked something inside me I thought had frozen solid decades ago. When he finished the song, a few people dropped coins in the small cardboard box at his feet. Maybe $5 total. The boy smiled and thanked each person by name, as if they'd given him a fortune. I approached him, pulling out my wallet. "That was beautiful," I said. "How long have you been singing out here?" He looked up at me with eyes too old for his face. "Thank you, sir. About 2 hours tonight. My mum works the late shift at the hospital. Cleaning. I sing until she gets off at midnight. Then we go to the shelter together." He said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity, like this was just how life worked. I handed him a $100 bill. His eyes went wide. "Sir, this is too much. I can't take this." That's when I knew this boy was different. In my world, everyone grabbed for more. Here was a child who had nothing, offered more than he'd probably made in a month, and his first instinct was to refuse it. "What's your name, son?" I asked. "David Martinez, sir. I'm 11. "Well, David, that $100 is yours. You earned it, with that voice. But I want to ask you something. Why do you sing Christmas carols? Why not regular songs?" His face lit up. "Because Christmas carols are about hope, sir. They're about believing in miracles, about things getting better, about love being stronger than everything else. My mum says when things are hard, we should sing about better days. Makes the hard days easier to handle." I felt something I hadn't felt in years: shame. Here was a boy living in a shelter, singing about hope and miracles, while I sat in my penthouse apartment feeling sorry for myself because my children only wanted my money and my business partners only wanted my connections. I made a decision that surprised even me. "David, would you sing another song?" I'll pay you $1,000. He shook his head firmly. I don't sing for money, sir. I sing because it makes people smile. But I'll sing another song for free if you'd like. And he did. He sang about silent nights and holy nights, and by the end I wasn't the only one standing there with tears streaming down my face. A crowd had gathered, maybe 30 people, all of us transfixed by this child who had nothing but gave everything. When he finished, I did something I hadn't done in 40 years. I sat down on the cold sidewalk next to him, not caring about my $3,000 suit. Tell me about your mother, David. His whole face changed, softened with love. Her name is Maria. She came here from El Salvador when I was a baby, trying to give me a better life. She works 3 jobs: hospital cleaning at night, office cleaning in the morning, and she does alterations for a tailor in the afternoon. She's always tired, but she never complains. She says as long as we have each other, we have everything. What about your father? The light in his eyes dimmed. He died when I was 5. Car accident. Mum says he was a good man who worked hard. That's all I really know about him. But Mum loves me enough for 2 parents, so I'm lucky. Lucky, this boy living in a shelter called himself Lucky. I'd spent the last decade calling myself unfortunate despite having more money than I could spend in 5 lifetimes. David, I want to help you and your mother. Would you accept help from me? He considered this carefully. Only if we can earn it, sir. Mum always says charity makes you smaller, but earning makes you taller. Could we work for it? This child had more pride and dignity than most of the executives I'd worked with. Yes, I said. Yes, you can work for it. That's how it started. I arranged for Maria to get a job as a housekeeper at one of my hotels with full benefits, and 3 times what she'd been making at her 3 jobs combined. I set David up with a vocal coach, the best in the city, and every Friday evening I'd meet them for dinner at a small diner near the shelter where they'd lived. Not at my expensive restaurants, but at their choice. A place where the food was simple and the company was genuine. Over the next 6 months, I learnt more from Maria and David than I'd learned in 60 years of life. Maria taught me about gratitude, about finding joy in small things, about the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Mr. Blackwell, she told me one evening, you have much money but little peace. David and I had no money but much peace. Now we have enough money and still have peace. That's the real blessing. David taught me about generosity. Every week, he insisted on singing at the hospital where Maria used to work, entertaining sick children for free. When I offered to pay him, he refused. Some things you don't do for money, Mr. Blackwell. You do them
because they fill your heart up. He was 11 years old and understood something I'd forgotten at 20. But the real change came 7 months after we met. I had a massive heart attack. Stress, my doctor said. Too much work, too much anger. Too much bitterness carried for too long. I woke up in the hospital with my children around my bed, but they weren't there out of love. I could hear them in the hallway arguing about my will, about who would get what, about whether I'd last the week. The only person who came out of genuine concern was David. He sat by my bed and sang softly, the same Christmas carols he'd been singing that snowy night, and I realized something that hit me harder than the heart attack. My own children saw me as a bank account, but this boy I'd known for 7 months cared about me as a person. When my lawyer came to discuss my estate planning, as he always did after any health scare, I made a decision. I called my children into my hospital room. "I'm changing my will," I told them. "The bulk of my estate will go to establishing the Maria and David Martinez Foundation for homeless families. You'll each receive $5 million in trust, enough to live comfortably if you're wise with it. The rest goes to helping families like David's. You should have seen their faces: rage, betrayal, accusations. You're giving our inheritance to strangers." To some kid you met on the street, my daughter was screaming. My son threatened to have me declared in. Neither of them asked how I was feeling, whether I was okay, if I was in pain. They only cared about the money. I looked at David, who was standing in the corner, horrified. "Mr. Blackwell, please don't do this because of us. We don't want to cause problems with your family." But Maria put her hand on his shoulder. "Hush, mijo. This is not about us. This is about Mr. Blackwell finding his own peace." She was right. My children left the hospital that day, and I haven't spoken to them since. They hired lawyers, tried to contest my competency, did everything they could to break the will. But I was examined by 3 independent psychiatrists, all of whom declared me perfectly sound of mind. The will stood. I didn't die from that heart attack. Obviously, I'm still here, 3 years later. But I'm a different man. I retired from the day-to-day operations of my business and put trusted managers in charge. I spend my time now running the foundation with Maria, who turned out to be a brilliant administrator. We've helped over 500 families transition from homelessness to stable housing, education, and employment. David is 14 now. His voice has changed, deepened, but it's still beautiful. He got a full scholarship to a prestigious performing arts school. He still sings at the hospital every week, still refuses payment, still insists that some things you do just because they fill your heart. He's teaching me, slowly, that he's right. Last week, I ran into my daughter in Manhattan. She looked older, harder, somehow. She didn't speak to me, just walked past like I was a stranger. It hurt, I won't lie, but I've learned that you can't make people love you, especially if all they ever loved was your money. The real tragedy isn't that I lost my children. The real tragedy is that I never really had them in the first place. But I gained something more valuable. I gained a family that chose to love me, not for what I had, but for who I could become. Maria calls me Thomas now, not Mr. Blackwell. She invites me to holidays, asks my advice about David's future, treats me like family. David sends me videos of his performances, asks me to help him with his homework, tells me about his dreams. Last Christmas Eve, exactly 3 years after I first heard David sing on that street corner, the foundation threw a party for all the families we'd helped. David sang, of course, the same Christmas carols, the same pure voice, but now accompanied by 100 other voices. Families who'd been homeless, now singing about hope and miracles because they'd lived them. I stood in the back, watching, and Maria came to stand beside me. "You saved us," she said quietly. I shook my head. "No, Maria. David saved me." That night on the street, I was already dead inside. I was just walking around, pretending to be alive. "Your son reminded me what it means to truly live." She smiled. "Maybe you saved each other then. That's how the best families work. Not blood, not obligation, but choice. Every day, we choose to love each other. That's what makes it real. This Christmas, my legal children will celebrate somewhere without me, probably still bitter about the inheritance they lost, but I'll be with my real family, the one I chose and who chose me back. We'll sing carols together, serve dinner at the shelter, and remember that the best gifts can't be wrapped or bought. They can only be given freely, from hearts that have learned what wealth really means. I used to think my fortune was measured in billions. Now I know it's measured in moments, in a boy's voice, cutting through a snowstorm. In a mother's grace, despite impossible hardship. In second chances offered and accepted. In learning, finally, that the richest man isn't the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least, because he has everything that truly matters. That snowy December night, I thought I was just another businessman walking home. I had no idea I was walking toward my salvation, singing on a street corner with holes in his shoes and hope in his heart. Want more stories that will change how you see wealth, family, and what really matters in life? Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because these transformative true stories will shift your perspective forever. Drop a comment telling us about a time someone unexpected changed your life for the better. Your story might inspire our next video. And if this touched your soul, share it with someone who needs to remember that the best inheritance we can leave is love, not money.